So I'm scrolling social media last night and I'm looking around and I start to see these maps. I'm like, what in the world did I miss? Where did this 3 feet of snow come from? Well, here's the thing you're going to find about this time of year. And as you probably know, you're going to hear rumors of snowstorms. You're going to hear it at the grocery store and you're going to clearly see it across social media. And, I was looking last night and this is what I saw. It was the GFS for yesterday, just dumping 3 to 4 feet of snow in some places into the Northeast. The problem with these operational runs, especially when you start looking at something that is days, in some cases weeks out, your accuracy is going to be way off. Think about it, guys. If your accuracy on a bow, you start to pull back and you're aiming at a target, and let's say you're off by just a few inches, the further out you are and the further distance you're shooting that arrow, the further you're off on the target, right? You're shooting 10 yards and you're off a little bit, which would be like a few days out. You're not missing it too bad. But if you're that same angle and you're shooting 100 yards away, you're going to be off by a significant amount. Same thing with the models. That's why we went from this yesterday to this last night, right? A big difference. So I am not sold that we're going to see a snow. Something I'm looking at is the ensembles, the averages. I'm seeing the trends. So these fluctuations will come and go. Don't get too hung up on this. I used to say people are hugging every model run, hoping for a big snow. So in today's video, I hope what comes across is what I'm confident in, and I try to let you know when I'm not confident in it. I think that's the deal, especially long range, and I don't know anyone that is confident past day 7. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to dig into this cold air. What's going to happen with this as we head into January? There are some things that I look at, the long-range models, sort of the trends, and I think we turn cold heading into January. Hey guys, if you're new, I'm Travis Roberts. I spent years on television as a meteorologist, and I ended my career as a chief meteorologist. I got out of that business years ago, but I found myself looking at these models, right? So once you're a meteorologist, you're always a meteorologist. So I'm going to share my analysis with you guys as I go through these videos, and we're going to talk about it. So if you think you'd like that kind of content, come on back. We'll look at these models together, sometimes twice a day, but today probably just once. Here's what we're looking at. This cold air in the east. I think that's going to happen. We're warming up across the west, and there's your really cold air. I think some of this will get tapped into right here as we head into Friday into Saturday, and this means a colder than average pattern across the east. But what about after Christmas? I think we warm up. When you look at these long-range models, you're not going to track any particular storm, but I start to look at more of a trend. And I think this develops more of a Pacific air mass across the lower 48 with your really, really Arctic air kind of locked up to the north. That's just what I'm thinking right now. And again, we're looking way past Christmas there, so take that with a grain of salt, throw it in the trash, do whatever you want to do with it. But let's look at what I'm feeling pretty confident about over the next couple of days anyway. This cold air here across the upper Midwest and the northern plains, not as cold as what we've seen. I've heard from a lot of folks up here into parts of Wisconsin, into Minnesota, into the northern plains, people that like to ice fish. They say this year is looking a little better. So drop me a comment down below. If you're into the cold, if you're a snowmobiler, how's this season looking for you so far? I know we've not seen some big snows in some areas, but places like in the Northeast have seen quite a bit of snow. I always love hearing from you guys who are dependent on snow to do the things you like to do, and the cold as well. Warm across the south, though, as we head into Monday. We're staying warm here across Texas. We've not seen a huge intrusion of cold air here. We're in the 80s in parts of South Texas. Still cold up here across the north, and there comes your front, dropping into parts of Missouri, down all the way into Arkansas. So temperatures go from the 60s back into the 50s and 40s. That cold air doesn't move very far to the south, but it's pretty chilly now up here across the northern plains. We're talking about teens and 20s are back. So we're going to keep those lakes freezing here and keep it cold with temperatures dropping back into the single digits and teens, maybe even some near zero temperatures at night. There comes your second blast of cold air. This is going to move into the east, and it could be some of the coldest air of the season, I think, maybe for the Northeast, with temperatures heading into next Saturday morning, possibly below zero or near zero here across parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, maybe even parts of Michigan. All right, this is interesting. You've got this northeast flow here. This is what's going to cause our ice as we head into Saturday night into Sunday. Still a threat. It's a problem. It's going to be a tricky travel morning across parts of Pennsylvania, down into the Appalachians, into Virginia, West Virginia, Western Maryland. We've got some winter storm watches that the National Weather Service has put out. Arctic air to the northeast kind of being reinforced by high pressure here. Your warm air to the west of the mountains moving north. That continues heading into Monday, and then there comes your front, cooling our temperatures back into the 30s across Ohio, Indiana, and then there's that cold starting to lurk here across parts of the north. We see that in Ontario as we head into Thursday and into Friday, and then really cold here into the northeast. We're near or below zero into Maine early Friday morning. Temperatures across the mid-Atlantic warming up some, but then here comes your real shot of cold air heading into next weekend. I think that pushes all the way to the Gulf Coast with temperatures Sunday morning possibly breaking freezing here across North Florida, southern Alabama, southern Mississippi. We've got single digits and teens across a good chunk of the east, and then below zero temperatures. Do we get near zero here into Albany? I don't know. Let's wait and see how this works out. But you see all this cold air back here across Ontario. There's snowpack on the ground, so that cold air as it moves to the south isn't getting modified. And now that you move it into the northeast, I mean, look at this. This could be really cold heading into Monday morning if all this comes together with temperatures in the teens below zero in some cases. Good snowmaking weather for the ski resorts. And a lot of snow on the way, too, up here into the northeast. We're going to look at that, too. There's your ice here across the upper Midwest, moving toward the Great Lakes. That's going to bring some freezing rain early Sunday morning for parts of Michigan. So from Traverse City south on 75, watch out early on Sunday morning for the freezing rain. Also here into northeast Ohio and the mountains of western North Carolina, western Virginia, West Virginia. As we move through the morning hour, that precipitation starts to move northeast, and we're bringing it now into parts of, again, northeast Ohio, that cold air being reinforced by high pressure to the north. So it's keeping it cold at the surface while aloft that warm air moves over top of it. So you've got that melting layer in the atmosphere, and you're melting those snowflakes, and at the surface it's cold enough that we refreeze. So that's going to cause travel problems all the way, it looks like at this point, through parts of Sunday. Now we warm up across Michigan, we warm up across northeast Ohio. Some of that cold air does get trapped here into the valleys of Virginia and northern West Virginia, and that could keep the ice going here. Not a lot of ice, but it doesn't take much to cause some problems here. Here's a closer look into Pennsylvania, also Ohio, West Virginia. There's that freezing rain. It looks like it'll probably be mostly south of Cleveland, though, but I-77, you get over towards Canton and Akron, go south, you're going to get into some freezing rain. Also into parts of Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, north up to Erie. I think towards Erie, we're a little bit too warm here along the lake shore. The water's probably going to modify the air enough that we're not too concerned, although you want to be cautious. And then into parts of Ontario, we'll probably see some of that as well. Some of that freezing rain could get heavy in some of the sheltered valleys into parts of northern West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and cold enough at the beginning of this that we start as snow. We'll probably transition over to some sleet and freezing rain into parts of Pennsylvania, also into parts of New York. Now, the dynamics start to change as this moves into New York as we head into Monday. Now, we're kind of looking out, I know. Some of this may change, so let's keep an eye on this, how this evolves. It looks like mostly a light snow event that might mix with some sleet, some freezing rain here, too, in parts of Connecticut. I mean, let's watch this here for western Connecticut. Really, I think north of Bristol, north of Waterbury, north of Danbury, you get up here into northwest Connecticut, rather, towards western Mass, parts of New York. Do we stay all snow? Do we see things flip over to freezing rain? Let's watch this, and this would be heading into Monday morning, so the Monday morning commute could be an issue here. Still some time to figure all of these details out. All right, let's go into the west, because this storm here that we're seeing right now is definitely causing a lot of snow, big winds here. That's going to settle down somewhat. The snow now moving into the Intermountain West, up into parts of Idaho, Montana, and into the Pacific Northwest. This is where our next storm is going to really take an aim at. I think we see some heavy snow into the northern mountains of California, and some snow into the Sierra too, but the heaviest snow to me looks like it'll be up into the mountains of British Columbia, into the Cascades, and then moving in toward the Canadian Rockies and into the Intermountain West once again. Snow totals up into parts of British Columbia could exceed, I mean, this is today through, what are we looking at, through Wednesday? You see that? I don't know if you can see that, 63.8 inches. I mean, I'm not going to get the 0.8 inches or even the 63 exact, but the idea is feet and feet and feet of snow here falling with this onshore flow, and you could get several feet of snow up here in the Canadian Rockies as well. With more snow falling as we move through the day Saturday, that starts to settle down some in the Sierra, and then that moves inland, heading through the weekend into next week. Let's break everything down now. We'll take you all the way through next week. We've talked about a lot of this here in the east, so we're not going to go through all of that again, but look at the rain showers here across the south. We've got this week's system moving north into Canada. Could put a little bit of light snow down here up into the prairies, and then here's your front. This is where things get a little bit different. The European, really progressive with that, pushing it to the south. You've got this wave of energy here. That's a terrible drawing. Here it is. It looks like this. We're also starting to connect with a little bit of Gulf moisture, and now we're looking at the possibility of, I think, a stripe of snow on the north side of that. Low pressure trying to take shape along our front as we head into Wednesday on the European, and that puts some snow into the northeast. I'm telling you what, we've seen a lot of snow here in the parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire this year compared to last year. I mean, you got to think about it. It was pretty snowless at points last year. Pretty wild to see it. Another chance of snow here. We turn cold. We've talked about the temperatures, and then another system swinging through, almost a clipper system into the northeast with just more lake effect that just keeps going. And all you snow lovers and other places looking for your big winter storm, I don't see it right now. This is the GFS. I want to take you and show you the differences. This is that same front heading through Monday, dropping south. There comes that next piece of energy, and look what it does as we move into Wednesday and Thursday. It starts to slow the front down. It creates an antifront situation with some moisture overriding or at least catching up with the front here as the low pressure tries to develop along it. This just looks really weird to me. In my opinion, the GFS notoriously does this, so I'm not on board with this. And then it's still trying to blow up a storm off the coast. Yesterday, it was just trying to blow up this huge, massive storm off the coast and just drop. That's the model I showed you, just a tremendous amount of snow here, first with your upper low and then into the northeast. I don't believe this whatsoever. I think this is pie in the sky, not going to happen. The ensembles, looking at this averaging out through next Saturday, this is where you start to look at the snow where I think it's going to fall. And these numbers are probably a little low in some areas, but this is where you can gauge where the snow will be. And if you stretch it out, there are still some chances for snow. Some of the individual members are also still showing some snowstorm potential. I'm not giving up on it. I'm just telling you, when you're looking around and you see these maps, just go, what the heck is this? I don't have all the answers, but I promise to shoot straight with you. It may not be what you want to hear if you're a snow lover in the East, Midwest, South, wherever you are. I have people complain sometimes I don't talk about every part of the country. It's one of the reasons I show the national map. So again, maybe not a lot of action happening across the South or the Southwest. And speaking of the Southwest, before we go, I want to leave you here, but look how quiet it is here. I mean, you're in Arizona, New Mexico for the next week. Quiet, not a lot going on. I mean, it's dry here. We could use something going on. When you get an El Nino, you clearly have a lot of action. We're arguably moving into a La Nina phase, so I think it's one of the reasons we've been kind of dry out here. All right, that's all I got. See you next time.